Welcome to episode 15 of the High School Golf Podcast. And today, Ted Bishop and myself are going to give you valuable resources that are going to help you set the culture for your team that you want and basically set the intention for your season. Ted, recently, we went through a coaching certification that was absolutely incredible. Let's talk a little bit about it.
Yes, thanks, Crystal. It was offered by the National Federation of State High School Associations, and specifically, it was a golf coaching certification. And the cost of the program was $50. It took about an hour and a half to go through. There was a brief test at the end of the program. But I have to tell you, someone who's coached on and off for over 40 years, I found this thing to be absolutely incredible. It was the best tool and resource that I have ever experienced as a golf coach. I'm going to give a shout out to Will Robbins and Jared Butts, PGA professionals who put this thing together for the NFHS. And I cannot emphasize to every coach that listens to this podcast how important it would be for you to obtain this golf coaching certification and how it will help you be a better coach. I know you and I, Crystal, are excited about really how we are going to restructure the coaching curriculum for our upcoming boys season based on what we learned through this training.
And let's talk about, too, how we came about this. You get great feedback from coaches all over the country. They'll email us, ask us certain topics. This came from a coach who was asking basically what he can do to help his assistant coaches improve their education. So Mike McDonald turned us on to this link and resource that we didn't even know existed and wish we would have got turned on to a long time ago. So this is a resource not only for high school golf coaches, but for middle school golf coaches. First of all, you do not have to be a PGA professional to go through it, but it is done by the PGA of America. So I thought that was incredible. Another link that we're going to include is for ADM resources. That's the American Development Model. And that provides incredible activity plans for age-specific kids for you to run your practices. Again, thanks, Mike McDonald, for turning us onto this. And thanks for your feedback for those that email us, because otherwise, if we had not had that question asked to us, I'm not sure we would have been turned on to this.
Yeah, and we're probably going to devote the next couple of podcasts that we do based on the things that we learned from this coaching training.
Right. So today, what we're going to dig into is we are starting our boys season here. There's a lot of teams across the country that may be starting their seasons. We are going to go through this podcast and help you basically set that tone for your season. And then our next one, we're going to dig in a little bit more specifically to the mental game of golf and some other areas that are a little bit more golf specific. But setting the intention and the tone for your season, that's how we're going to get started, and basically developing your team culture.
Yeah, and I would say as a coach, I do care a lot about what my players think of me. And so I'm going to ask you as a coach to write down 3 to 5 things that you would like for your players to say about you when your season is finished. And I guess some of the things that would be important to me, Crystal, would be that as a coach, I push my players harder to get better, that I supported them when they had a bad day. We know in this sport, there's probably going to be more bad days than there are good days. And that I was a coach that also held them accountable to how they treated other teammates. Those would be 3 things that are important to me. Is there anything that I missed that you would like?
When I think about how I want my players to remember me, I feel like one of my attributes is to be an encourager. Obviously, I want my players to feel encouraged. I want them to feel supported and that I truly care about them. That's probably the number one thing that I want my players to feel at the end of the season.
And I think, once as a coach that you've done that kind of helps you set the tone for what your expectations actually would be in a roundabout way for your players. Then I think you've got a responsibility to really create an environment for your team where they can learn life skills, and you need to do this by establishing team values. And one of the things that I loved about this training, Crystal, was it kind of prioritized that as being really the first thing that you talk to your team about rather than team goals, things that they want to accomplish individually or as a team. So, let's kind of help other coaches create maybe what these life skills should look like as they establish their team.
A couple worthwhile exercises here is we are establishing our values as coaches. So we're writing down our top 5 values that we want our team to have. And then we are going to have our players do the same. We want our players to write down their values for the team. And then we're going to come together and establish these team values together so that everybody is on the same page. And we're going to discuss them and have this conversation about them. The coaches training was very much on education-based learning and these life skills and establishing these team values. For, my team values, the top 5 will kind of alternate here, but one of the big ones for me was honesty. I want players to be honest with their coaches, honest with their teammates, and honest with their parents in everything that they do.
Yeah, I think a big one to me would be respect. I want my players to treat everyone on the team with dignity, honor, respect. I want them to listen to other people. I want them to support their teammates, and I want them to acknowledge the successful contributions that other players have to the team, maybe on a day when that particular player didn't play so well.
One for me is integrity, basically having a strong moral principle, which means accurate scoring. We need to hold ourselves accountable on the golf course, and we need to have integrity when it comes to rules. So, that word I feel like gets thrown around a lot. I don't think a lot of young teenagers know what it means to act with integrity, and we're here to teach them that. So I think in golf, integrity in scoring and integrity in the rules and having those strong moral principles are going to be a team value.
Yeah, Crystal, and I kind of talked about hard work to a degree in the things that I wanted my players to remember me for. And I guess part of what I mean there, and this is a really important aspect, is cultivating resilience and determination to overcome challenges and to be able to learn from their failures. I mean, let's face it, I don't care what you're doing in life, you're probably going to fail more than you succeed. And the key to being a successful golfer or a successful person is gleaning something positive from those failures that will put you in a better position to succeed the next time. And I think it's making players comfortable with the fact that it's okay to fail.
Right. It's a big one. Sportsmanship was next on my list, and basically, this goes along with that respect as well. As you discuss these as a team, you may lump some of these together because sportsmanship for me was showing respect to opponents and teammates, very much like respect for you. So we could lump those together.
Yeah, I think that, teamwork. Yeah, you know me. I mean, I live for positive team chemistry. I can't, I don't really want to coach in an environment where we don't have positive team chemistry. So to get that, I think you have to foster a true spirit of collaboration and unity. And I think that success, again, comes from supporting each other and being able to compromise, understanding that how you believe or how you feel about what uniform we're going to wear tomorrow might not be the same as how somebody else feels. So, even to something as simple as that, come up with a suitable compromise that will help everybody agree with what the decision is.
Absolutely. Communication was a big one for me. Open communications between coaches and players is big, and the players being able to talk to the coaches and approach the coaches and just having that open communication as a team is a big value.
Yeah, I think knowing the rules of golf better. I mean, let's face it, there's probably going to be a limitation in how well even we as coaches know the rules at the high school level, but certainly players of varying degrees of skill level, younger players that are coming in from middle school to high school probably haven't been exposed to the rules very much. So I would encourage you to seek out resources. There's some great videos and some things that you can download and actually work with your players on during bad weather days in the spring that will give them a better emphasis on the rules of golf, and these come from the United States Golf Association.
Yes, and I'll include that link as well, but definitely download that USGA app and go over some of that with your players. To go back to your teamwork value, let's talk a little bit about who makes the team. This was on that coach's training and a really important slide.
Yeah, I just want there's one last thing that I really wanted to talk about on these core values, and that's the fact that you represent your community, your school, your family, and yourself, and you represent those entities in that order. Your community first, your school second, your family third, and fourth, yourself.
Right. No, it's definitely a big one. I think they lose sight of that. So their behavior doesn't always reflect that value. And that's what we're here for, to teach them those life skills for sure. So yeah, let's talk about teamwork and who makes the team. And you as a coach need to set the standard of who's going to be a part of the team.
Well, I agree, and I think that we're going to give you some criteria for that. And it's not really going to be score based. I think that if we're looking for the people that we want to spend our time with, the people we want to travel with, then we're going to try to structure our team around people who can exhibit these successful core values. So I think the first thing that I'm looking for would be who are the best leaders that we have on the team.
Another one that to consider is who is improving, who's showing that they are playing in the tournaments, taking the lessons, and putting the practice in.
Yeah, and I think certainly who are we seeing exhibiting the most consistent results from? And that doesn't necessarily, again, mean from a scoring standpoint. It could just be in practice habits and just, constant improvement.
Right. And who manages their expectations the best? And this is another thing we'll get into in that following podcast about the mental game, but being able to manage your expectations and handle that effectively, those are all going to be factors that determine who makes the team.
And, here's what I would say. Okay, we all know as coaches we have people on our team who need to be in our lineup from a scoring standpoint. So what we need to try to do is we're going to obviously they've got what it takes from a scoring standpoint, but on top of that, then it's really important that those better players on the team buy and exhibit every single one of these core values that we've talked about. That's only going to make your team stronger, and again, we're putting the emphasis on core values and behavior and environment over scoring. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say that that's going to lead to better scoring opportunities.
One of the things that they did mention is the importance of having team captains for your varsity and your JV team. That way, when you establish these values, you're going to have your team captains being the ones that help enforce these values, and it's not just going to be a coaching dictatorship. It's going to be the team is enforcing these values and your captains are holding players accountable. And that is a challenge. I never thought about having a JV captain. That's something that we may incorporate if you have depending on your team makeup. But yeah, captains are an important part. We're going to have two captains this year for our boys team, I know, or co-captains, but we haven't always had that in the past. And that's something we're going to improve upon.
The things that I've always valued with captains is I view them to be a conduit of communication to the rest of the team. And there certainly have been times where you and I have taken the captain aside and we've said, look, we need to be doing a better job of this. And sometimes when you're at a certain point in the season, the voice of the coaches, uh, it's repetitive. It's like the same sound bouncing off the wall. And sometimes it will resonate better with people on the team, maybe if they hear it from someone else. And that's where it can be very positive to have a captain that you trust and respect, and one that the other players also trust and respect, who sometimes you can work your message into the rest of the team through the captain in a much more effective way.
So, Ted, let's move on to how, as coaches, you're going to communicate this with the parents and get into a little bit of the code of conduct, the expectations that you have on students and parents, and how we're going to communicate with the parents.
Well, one of the things, Crystal, that I felt really good about when I watched this coaching certification was that they recommended some type of a player contract. And we actually have what we call a player parent contract here at Franklin. And we make the players and the parents both read it and sign off on what our expectations are for both as our season starts. And I think it's extremely important that you do this early. What you're trying to do is set the tone with both your players and parents. And I think this contract is going to allow you to back up your decisions. It's going to reinforce the fact that you're trying to run a values centered program. And in some ways, it'll take the focus off scoring and qualifying and put it more on behavior and environment, which is what I think we're ultimately trying to achieve here.
Through this training, they actually have the contract that you can download and modify based on your team. So they already give you the outline for that. They have a place for you to put your logo, like your school logo on it that you can add, and then you can modify that however you want to. And I know, Ted, going into this season, one thing that we'd like to do is go over that contract a little bit more with our parents and players. So we have a parent player meeting on the first day of practice where we go over all this, and we did have them sign this parent player contract last year. But I think this year we're looking forward to going through that a little bit more in detail so that we can cover this. And it's going to be a baseline of how we handle everything going forward, whether it's behavioral standards, and everything is going to be stemmed from that parent player contract and how we respond as coaches.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you go into this meeting, Crystal, I think the first thing that the coach should do is you should state what your education-based coaching philosophy is. That probably needs to be in writing. It's almost like a mission statement at the beginning of that contract.
Absolutely. Having a mission statement for your team and for your coaching. Again, all this is doing is setting the intention and the purpose for your team and for your season. A couple of things you're going to want to cover in that parent player meeting. We've talked about establishing your philosophy and your mission statement. We've talked about establishing the values of your team. The team code of conduct, that is another printout that this training supplied that you can modify if needed, but you can print out that code of conduct right from the training. The expectations of your student athletes on the course and off the course, expectation of parent behavior on and off the golf course is a big one to focus on and maybe a little uncomfortable to discuss, especially if you've had any parent issues in the past. But it is really important to do that.
Obviously, your scheduling considerations, I would encourage you at that parent-player meeting to probably have not only just your competition schedule there that you're obviously going to hand out to the players and parents, but try to be as ahead of the game and even in the practice schedule as you can, just so people know what's going on the entire season. You can cover the tryouts and what the qualifications are going to be for making the team. And I think that probably one of the most important things that you also want to include is what are the communication channels going to be and what are the procedures when it comes to communication. And the way that our communication procedures are operated here at Franklin Community High School, there needs to be direct communication first and foremost between the athlete and the coach. This is the most important thing. And I love the point they emphasized in the coaching certification training that we as coaches need to tell parents is that their kids are a year or two away from going to college, and the parents are not going to be there every day when the kid's in college. So there could be a time when it's important for a college student to go and communicate with a college professor. And there's no better way than to get comfortable with that practice than being open and being able to go and talk to your high school coach. So first and foremost, can't emphasize that enough. Parents sometimes want to run interference for their players, and they're really not doing their players any service when they do that. I mean, down the road, if there's an issue that we can't get lined out, then certainly the parents will be brought in with the coaches and the player to discuss whatever the circumstances may be.
So basically, in summary, setting your intention, what you want your players to say about you as a coach, and then setting your team values, setting your criteria for who makes the team, and then organizing your parent meeting with a parent fair contract, a code of conduct, and these other probation points that we mentioned. Those are going to be for step by step of getting ready for this season, making sure you're prepared. And I'm going to say too, if you've been coaching for 20 years and you haven't done this stuff, now is a great time to start and start setting that team culture. And maybe not everybody's going to be on board with it, but it is going to be a worthwhile activity that I think is going to make your coaching a lot more enjoyable.
Well, I think what you're trying to do as a coach is you're trying to get early buy-in from not only your players, but also the parents. And we've been very lucky here at Franklin Community High School to have a lot of great advocates from our parents. And I think your parents are going to appreciate the structure and the environment that you're trying to create for the team. So at the end of the day, as a coach, you're trying to be professional, respectful, and education focused. And that's why we do what we do.
So, in this podcast description, we are going to include some very useful links. The one for this coach's training, the ADM activity plans that are going to be a big resource. And I'm going to throw in the USGA link for all the rules resources as well. If you have any questions, please give us your feedback and any questions you may have. If you're having problems accessing the links, my email is crystal, that's CRYSTAL, at thelegendsgolfclub.com.
Mine is Ted Bishop, 38 PGA at AOL.com. And I want to really encourage people to continue to send us emails on topics or questions that you might have. I cannot tell you how important that is for us in coming up with things that we can talk about on this podcast. I know we were asked about some disciplinary measures that we've instituted in our program. And that's actually going to be part of this next podcast that we're going to do this month, Crystal, on the mental game.
Yeah, absolutely. Discipline and the mental game focus. So that's going to be a good one. That'll be our next one. And we're going to be releasing these every other week. We hope you enjoy them. Reach out to us, give us your feedback. And I know we're going to be starting the season before we do our next podcast. I hope everybody has a good start to the season. Have a great day.